What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman, which does not matter at all today because I'm much more excited to talk to my good friends, Perry Goldstein and Alex Strofe. You know him from ESPN Madison. You know her from Pack's What She Said. You can follow him at Alex_underscore Strofe. You can follow her at Perry_ Goldstein. I can't talk because I'm so freaking excited. Perry, Alex, how the heck are you doing?
Good, Andy. All things good over here. Just thinking it might be almost time for Aaron Rodgers to make an announcement today. We'll see. Hi, Perry.
Hi. Happy to be recording with you guys, even though it's off schedule. We fit it in.
We made it work. That's what's important. Sometimes it's a little bit off kilter. Sometimes it's a little bit off schedule, but worth it nonetheless. Can't wait to talk to you guys. As usual, there's plenty to go over. I don't think there's going to be any lack of topics or conversation this offseason. Let's start with Mike Smith, because that was probably the biggest, at least actual news story from Monday. It's an interesting story to sort of follow, right? Because we hear that he's going to end up leaving Green Bay. Green Bay knew about it. They were going to let him seek other opportunities, but a little bit interesting that this opportunity is basically the same opportunity that he had in Green Bay. It sounds like he does get maybe some sort of pass rush specialist title added on to outside linebackers coach, but as sort of expected, he moves to Minnesota as outside linebackers coach with the Vikings, following his good friend Mike Pettin to Minnesota, and another instance of an NFC North team taking either a player or a coach from the Green Bay Packers and moving them over. Perry, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on Mike Smith to the Minnesota Vikings?
I mean, I expected at this point when players or coaches leave, they always go to NFC North opponents. I think you already said it, right? Like, he joined his friend Pettin. And I think that he was obviously Pettin's guy. He's not Joe Barry's guy. So when asked to be released by the Packers, they said, of course, thank you for all your work and please go do what it is you want to do. And he wanted to join his guy Pettin. And unfortunately, Pettin's in Minnesota. I think that's all it is. I do think it's interesting that he would leave Green Bay when I think the edge and outside linebacker room is about to change a lot. And there would be probably a lot of room for him to mold and grow, especially what he did with Rashawn Gary. But if he wants to go to Minnesota, then I wish him luck and not too much luck.
Yes, I hear you. I got, Rachel Hotmeyer got mad at me for saying that when I said, if Nathaniel Hackett goes to Chicago, I'll kind of cheer for his success a little bit, but I can't really cheer for anything more than that. I'll be happy he got a head coaching job, but that's it. That's the end of really any cheering after that. And she was like, can't you just cheer for the person? I'm like, not in Chicago. Certainly not doing that.
Yeah, but definitely not in Minnesota. Definitely not. But again, I understand the move. For him, I understand the move. Absolutely. Even if it doesn't seem like a promotion to us, understand wanting to go be with your guy.
Alex, what's your take on it?
Exactly, right. I mean, it shows you how tight-knit the NFL is. And I mean, we already knew that for the most part, especially seeing all the moves that have happened this kind of offseason. So yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the release on Friday was pretty vague. He's going to go explore other opportunities. We wanted to see what that meant. Now we know. But yeah, it makes sense. But it just shows you again how tight-knit the NFL really is. But now, so what is it? Let's just recap. So we've got Pettin and Smith in Minnesota. We've got Getsy in Chicago and Dom Capers in Detroit. This is the Packers division again, baby. We're good.
That is just crazy. I mean, it's just, and then of course, there's players everywhere too.
Yeah, I missed it
on all sides. It's crazy. And I mean, to be fair, Jerry Gray, former Minnesota Vikings coach, is in Green Bay. There's been some crossover in other areas as well. So it's not like, Green Bay's totally, stain free, but
Packers got a butt kiss too. We got to keep that in mind.
That's true. Also, they do have a butt kiss as well. I guess, before we move on from Mike Smith, I do want to ask, sort of Packer implications here. We had the Z eyeball emojis. I want to go on the record. I am sick of eyeball emojis, especially when it's from a cryptic standpoint. I don't need any more eyeball emojis. I'm done with the eyeball. At least come up with something more creative. Can we figure out a different emoji that's maybe still cryptic, but not quite as I don't know, just cliche at this point as the eyeball emojis. But Z posted once again the eyeball emojis on Twitter the day that Mike Smith goes to Minnesota. A, does this potentially mean that we could see a Zadarius Smith in Minnesota? And then B, I do think it's very fair to say that Mike Smith had a huge impact on Rashawn Gary. I think you can make an argument that Zadarius and Preston, A, were impacted by Mike Smith, and B, also impacted Rashawn Gary. And now you're probably looking at a situation where Zadarius is gone, Mike Smith is gone. We're not sure what's going to happen with Preston yet. How does this affect the Packers? How does this affect Rashawn Gary? Alex, to start with you this time.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I guess I hadn't thought about it that way at all quite yet. So I think that makes a ton of sense, right? And again, going back to what I just said, right? We know how tight knit the National Football League is. So of course the connections might play into it. But is your allegiance with a former coach, or is it with the dollar signs? Is what a lot of this will come down to, right?
Good
So.
point.
So I guess I can't tell you how it'll play out, but of course it'll be a factor. But again, is it the dollar signs or is it the connections, and what you think your chance at success is ultimately what it comes down to. So I have no idea, but obviously it plays a role.
Where does your allegiance lie, Alex? If the Vikings podcast calls tomorrow and says, "Hey, we are opening up the checkbook. We need Alex Strofe on our Viking a Day podcast," is the money speak, or do we have some loyalty built in here?
I think we've got some loyalty built in here. I like you guys too much. A and B, I don't think a Vikings podcast is calling me to be nice or to be rude about the Vikings. Rather, I'm not going to be very nice about the Vikings. There's not a whole lot of nice things to say about them like the Packers. So.
Money talks sometimes, Alex. Perri, what are your thoughts on how it could impact the Packers?
I don't know. I mean, if Z ended up in Minnesota, I wouldn't be surprised, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he just went to like the highest bidder. I think that he's just enjoying being cryptic on Twitter. I think a lot of players are like that. And I just don't really, I try to like avoid buying into any of that. From the Packers standpoint, yeah, I mean, losing Mike Smith is a loss. Like you just said, Andy, we saw what he was able to do with both the Smiths and the years that they were able to have, especially 2019. And then in Rashawn Gary's development, I also think that the Packers do a pretty nice job, special teams aside, bringing in people at that kind of level of coaches. So whoever they bring in is going to be really important, especially because I think they're going to need to replenish that room now. So they're going to have a lot of young guys coming in, but the coaching carousel is not new. And sometimes I think about, Joe Barry being the inside linebacker, just like a linebacker guy. Like I'm sure he has someone in mind for that job that he wants, that will want to come and be with him in Green Bay and work with Rashawn Gary, who's a rising star, and whoever they draft. So just curious to see who they replace him with.
I think they did have a replacement, and their name is now avoiding me. I know we talked about it last week, but we'll get that to you by the end of the show. But they did name a replacement. Alex, you don't happen to remember his name, do you?
Not off the top, but I've got Google in front of me, Andy.
Alex, you are on the job. We are going to get that started. We'll have that for you in a moment.
There we go.
But yes, they did hire a replacement. He spent a lot of time with the Buffalo Bills. You got the name?
I got the name. I'm going to slaughter it though, Andy. Jason Rebrovich.
Rebrovich, correct. Yep. So spent time with the Bills, I know, as an outside linebackers coach. I think, was it the Jaguars as well? I'm not sure if you still got it up, but I think, 20-year, coach, a lot of experience. So mostly defensive line, defensive assistant, but spent some outside linebackers coach with the Bills as well. So they got their replacement for outside linebacker. Alex, we appreciate your quick fingers and Google technique.
Love the internet. I just want to go back to speak to back. I said pack. I want to go back on this cryptic messaging thing. It's like the offseason a lot, and especially being a daily podcast, right? We're going to grasp at the tea leaves like we've been doing with Aaron Rodgers for the last 18 months, it feels like. I'm glad we're not spending too much time in an eyeballs emoji. I appreciate you guiding the train this way, Andy.
It surprises me, and I don't know, maybe it shouldn't, but it surprises me, like, there's like thousands of players, or like there's so many players that like a few of these free agents aren't just like on Twitter being like, yeah, I'm going to either Minnesota or Denver, or just saying like, whoever opens up the checkbook, I am literally going there. Whoever pays me the most money is where I will be playing this year. Or just being like, you know what, I'm going to do everything in my power to come back to Green Bay. And I know like some of that's undercutting your agents a little bit, and your agents like, don't do that. But it still shocks me that with how many players there are, and in an age of social media and more individualism, that somebody's not out there just being like, screw the crypticness, I'm just going to be honest, and here's what I'm going to do. I feel like in some way, like if I were a free agent, like that's probably how I would be. And also we're also in an age where some players are like being their own agents now, for better or for worse. So like, it just surprises me that we don't get a little bit more transparency into that process sometimes.
Yeah, I love the optimism for transparency. Maybe someday we'll get there, right? Like Twitter's still evolving. Everybody's evolving. I hope we're there at some point, but who knows? Until then, we're going to have eyeball emojis, and I guess we'll have
forever and ever the eyeball emoji. We also had sort of an interesting news day on Monday, in the fact that all of these voided contracts voided. It's really interesting. I talked to a few different people. and there was no consensus. It either voided at like 12:01 a.m. on Monday, all of these contracts that were set to be voided. There were other reports that it may have been like 3 or 4 p.m. There were other reports that it could be the end of day. I don't want to get too far into the weeds because I actually talked to somebody who covers the team very closely, and they talked to agents, and the 2 different agents had totally different stories. So that's literally how confusing that this is. As to what the actual deadline was. However, whenever it was, the deadline came and passed, and there was no news on the voided contracts, which means all of the Green Bay, voided contracts, including Kevin King, Devondre Campbell, etc., did officially void. That money now accelerates into the upcoming salary cap. Does not mean that those players, definitely won't be back in Green Bay. New contracts can still be worked out, but it definitely means that their contracts did toll and void, and they enter unrestricted free agency.
What does that mean then? Like, what does that mean for the Packers then if they didn't get deals done in time? Like, I know the money turns into dead money, but can it be like reworked in a way that it won't impact them negatively?
Not really, but it was always sort of expected to kind of happen that way. So it's not anything surprising and not anything like super out of the ordinary. And just to show you how clear that is, there was no, as far as I'm aware, I don't think there was like 50 contracts set to void throughout the NFL. I don't think a single one of them got a new contract done prior to that. So again, it was sort of like when you set up that contract that way, it's expected. There would have been a benefit for Green Bay to potentially get it done prior to it voiding. So then you could continue to push more money out through the course of the contract, but it's not anything that's like just going to be like, incapable of overcoming. If anything, the biggest thing out of this, if you read Bill Huber's article, it sounds like he talked to Devondre Campbell's agent, which was former Badger offense. It doesn't matter. He talked to him, and it said that the Packers did approach Devondre Campbell about a potential, or wanting him back with the team, but did not get into numbers or anything like that. And if anything, what I would sort of read between the lines with that and try to glean is that it would seem to me, because of course, I just want to reiterate here, Green Bay had an incentive to potentially get a deal done with Devondre Campbell before it would have voided. And if they wanted, in fact, to do that, and that's true, that they want Devondre Campbell back, it would sort of tell me that they want him back if this is going to be another all-in season, and they don't know that quite yet. And the only reason that they would not know that quite yet is because they don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. Because to me, if Rodgers was back, signed, sealed, delivered, you start having those conversations and see, hey, can we get some of these guys back before their contracts void, and start that process of, sort of reshaping the roster. But you don't want to get into a position where they basically were in last year, where they redid all of these contracts and then had to deal with the Aaron Rodgers situation. Is he going to come back or not? Because that's the last thing that they want again. So if I'm reading between the lines a little bit, which for right or wrong, I almost feel like this seems like Green Bay maybe couldn't quite have these discussions in full yet because they don't exactly know what's going to happen with 12.
But doesn't Devondre Campbell strike you as a guy that want back regardless? Like, he's not an offensive weapon, and he is their defensive signal caller. He was an all-pro. Like, wouldn't that be someone that they want to keep no matter what? I mean, I know you're looking, money.
I would argue no.
Money.
I would argue no. And the reason I say that is because if Rodgers is gone, your championship window is going to be closed for a little bit, in my opinion. You can be good. You could maybe even be really good, but I don't think you're winning a Super Bowl in the next 3 years. And I don't think I'm breaking any news by saying that. So what is the point of signing Devondre Campbell to a 2 to 3 year deal worth $10 million a season? And when he's 32 in 3 years, and by the time your championship window's open, maybe in 3 to 4 years, he's past his prime and you're overpaying him. So like, I totally get the hey, you know what? You're not sure what's going to happen on offense and with Jordan Love and with the quarterback. So bring back your first team all pro and let's keep that defense together. Like, that defense is trending in the right direction. And if you get that right, maybe you don't need, that all pro quarterback. And maybe you can, let Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon and some of the other guys do the heavy lifting. Sure. Okay. Maybe. But I would still be hard pressed to say that your best option is to give Devondre Campbell a big contract at age 29 when you're not going to win a Super Bowl in the next few years.
So that means you think that he's going to want a big contract?
I do. And I think the big thing with Campbell too is, so he signs his rookie deal for 4 years, and then he gets a 1 year small contract. It was an okay contract in Arizona, but it was a 1 year deal. I want to say it was around $5 million. I think it was around $5 million. And then he got the 1 year, $2 million deal with Green Bay. And now he's going to be 29 this season. Like, this is probably his legitimate last chance to get that big long-term deal with a ton of bonuses and money and guaranteed. You could maybe make an argument if Green Bay runs it back and he wants an opportunity to win a Super Bowl, maybe he could take a big 1 year deal from Green Bay that's split up between multiple seasons on another voided contract. And then, maybe he could get another payday next year if he has another great season. But when he goes into that next season, teams are going to see the number 30 attached to his name, which is that, it's basically the death number when you're talking contracts. So if I were his agent, I would absolutely be advocating for, we need to get this 3 to 4 year, $40 million deal if we can get it right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Just kind of pressing to get your opinion, because you're right. I mean, he just had the best season of his career. What are the chances he replicates another first team all pro season? But he wants to capitalize on it. Like, I get that. I guess as a fan, I just want to see him back, because I'm in the camp that you said before, which is like his defense. I mean, and I think it's also a little bit of like recency bias, where the last game we watched was like their best performance yet. And you're like, wow, like this defense has so much potential. Like, let's keep it no matter what. And especially if you got a rookie quarterback, then like you want to give him the best chance of winning, et cetera, et cetera. But no, I mean, it makes perfect sense.
And that's what makes this offseason so intriguing, right? Is there's like literally a million different directions that they could go, because I've also stated before, and I agree with this wholeheartedly as well. Let's say the Rodgers trade does come to fruition and you can keep that defense together. You bring back, you focus on defense instead. You bring back a Lowry and Amos, Douglas and a Campbell, and let that defense cook. You get back first round picks and maybe a Jerry Jeudy from the Broncos, something like that. And now all of a sudden, you let Matt LaFleur build that offense under his image with, whether it's Jordan Love or Drew Lock or whomever, maybe a future quarterback. You bring in a Jerry Jeudy, and now you've got all these draft picks where you can build the offense and how Matt LaFleur wants it to look. I trust Matt LaFleur to build an offense. You're now telling me that they've got a good defense. Hopefully Bisaccia can make a better special teams. That team could be better than you think it is sooner rather than later. So I get all sides of it. And trust me, Devondre Campbell is amazing. I'd love to see him back. He's everything you want in a linebacker. So, but again, the age, the contract, where Green Bay's at from a salary cap standpoint, what championship window are you trying to open? These are all the really fun, amazing questions that it's just impossible to answer until that first domino of Aaron Rodgers falls. And then everything else just trickles after that.
That was a really fascinating conversation. Thank you for that. I got a front row seat. That was awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome, buddy. Well, now it's on to you.
I just poke Andy. I just like make him explain himself more.
Yeah, no, but you do such a great job, right? Because we're all sitting in your shoes, Perri, where we're like, we're fans. We want everybody back. Obviously, we want Devondre Campbell back, right? No freaking brainer. Yeah. But is it doable, right? And I'm not a cap expert, right? I don't get contracts entirely. I'll be the first one to tell you that. Andy Herman does. We should call him. I mean, I can't tell if it's Andrew Herman or Andrew Brandt talking to us right now. It's fantastic. So really enjoyed that. But where are we going next, Andy?
Yeah. So I think the next big thing, speaking of that first domino, I appreciate that, by the way, Alex, but it's Tuesday. Pat McAfee apparently may have some big guests on his show. There just happens to be a certain big guest that happens to sometimes come on Tuesdays. I'll let you answer first. Could we get an Aaron Rodgers announcement on Tuesday with Pat McAfee?
Well, if you're listening to this on your drive home Tuesday night, this is probably old news, because I think so, right? Like, I don't want to be naive and think the only big guest that Pat McAfee would tease on a Tuesday is Aaron Rodgers, because as we know, Pat McAfee's the biggest sports talk radio show in the country right now. And he's got all sorts of big guests coming on there all the time. So I don't want to be naive, but the way it's teased, the way Aaron Rodgers has teased when his announcement is coming, which is right around when the period begins where you can franchise tag players, that's today, right? So like, yeah, it all is adding up. And to the aforementioned tea leaves I brought up, reading into them a little bit with my magnifying glass and my Inspector Gadget hat, yeah, I'm starting to think that, yes, he does make an announcement today. I hope, right? Because I'm sick of waiting already, and it's been like 3 weeks or 4 weeks, So I hope so, because just to go back to all the things you just talked about, Andy, right? We can't start making, and we being the Packers in this sense, can't start really making a lot of those big decisions and tough decisions until they know what the heck's going on with Aaron Rodgers. So given what he's told us, I think, yes, today's the day. And I'm hoping it's, hey man, let's run it back. I'm coming back for good, but we will see. Nobody knows but Aaron.
I think it's a possibility, but I want to ask this pair. Let's say he does go on Pat McAfee on Tuesday and announce his decision. Can he pull a LeBron and say, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach? Obviously not South Beach in this scenario, but is this something that he can legitimately go on McAfee and say, you know what? I've decided I want out of Green Bay. Is that something he can legitimately do? Or if it's an announcement on McAfee, does it have to be either a retirement or I'm returning to Green Bay?
I think it'd be pretty messed up if he made an announcement and hasn't told the team yet. Like if he goes on and is like, I had a conversation with the team and this is what we've decided. I think my time in Green Bay is done and I'm going to seek a trade. Fine. I just think that if he does something like this and drops it before having conversations with the team, then that's just wrong. And I think it also goes against everything he wanted to build with them and all of his issues with the front office last season. He's kind of like turning it around. And maybe it's this whole, you want to get down a rabbit hole, like Aaron Rodgers, backstab, hoax, whatever against the team. But I don't think so. I think there's a world where he can make any kind of announcement as long as he's had conversations with the team. But everything you said about Devondre Campbell now has me thinking, like, if the team already knew what his decision was, wouldn't they be making moves with other players, restructuring, et cetera? So now I'm thinking, like, maybe they don't know. Now you've got my wheels turning. I have a feeling he's just going to come on Pat McAfee and say, yeah, I'm coming back to Green Bay year 18. Like, here we go. I think it's going to be a lot less exciting than people want it to be. All the conspiracies and where he's going to get traded to are really fun, but I don't know. That's my hunch.
Well, the other interesting wrinkle to this is, and Andy, I want to get your take on this, is the fact that Brian Gutekunst announced he has a press conference on Wednesday at noon, right?
But he's always going to have a press conference at noon.
Okay, I didn't know if that was the case.
Yeah, it's a pre-combine, like it's been preset for a while. It has nothing to do with Aaron. It just happens to be in the same week.
So I was just curious if that was related. I didn't know that, Perri. So I appreciate you letting me know, because I seriously thought it could be related. Like, I don't know. Am I reading too deep into this? Which obviously that is the case. I was. So
it's so easy to go down that hole,
right? Isn't it?
Easy, yeah.
More eyeball emojis is what I think
exactly.
we need to that. But so here's the thing. I agree with you, Perri. I don't think what I'll say is that if we get to Tuesday and we find out that Rodgers is going to be on McAfee, whether they tease a decision or not, if we get to McAfee without hearing anything from Schefter, Rappaport, etc., if we get to that point, he's going to make an announcement on McAfee, it's going to be that he's returning or maybe retiring, but I would say like 80% returning. I would even say like 95% returning, 5% retiring, 0% chance that he just says, I want to play somewhere else. That would be my guess. If he decides that he wants to play somewhere else and he's going to talk about it on McAfee, my guess is that his team would leak that first so that it would be announced ahead of time so that he's not making that announcement on McAfee, that's released by Schefter, Rappaport, etc. And then he's going to talk about his decision on McAfee, if anything. Like, I don't think, I would be shocked if we got into the McAfee show and like nobody knew, we didn't hear anything from Schefter or Rappaport, anyone. And then all of a sudden for the first time, he's like, I'm out. I want to go somewhere else. That would, nothing would shock me. That would very much surprise me.
Yeah, I tend to agree completely. Right. Like it's interesting to ponder how that would be executed if it was, okay, I'm getting traded or I want to be traded, or, it's not like, yeah, we've got our suitor. This is where I'm going. Here's the news flash that's getting leaked. It's good. You're really good at calming me down, Andy. Right. Because I'm expecting the worst.
He just said it though, too. Like, he was like, players don't just like go out and they're like, I want to go to X team. And now like we're talking about whether Aaron Rodgers will go on Pat McAfee and say, I want to go to X team.
Could he pave the way?
There's just like a more nuanced way to go about this. And Rodgers, he plans his moves. Like he doesn't do things spontaneously. So whatever he does is going to be, like Andy said, like either told to Schefter or Ian Rappaport, whomever it is, likely not Schefter. And it's going to be like done. A calculated sounds like has a negative connotation to it here. I don't mean it that way, but it's going to be planned out because he's going to want to execute it the way that he wants it to be done.
No, I totally agree. I just don't see a world where we get to it. And that's the announcement that we get if we haven't heard anything before that. But
Yeah.
Crazier things have certainly happened, and we shall certainly see. And maybe there's not anything on Tuesday. Maybe it's the following Tuesday. Maybe it's a Tuesday after that. But Green Bay would like to know sooner rather than later so that they can sort of start this entire thing. We'll touch on Rodgers in just a second. We'll probably end up doing a little bit more lightning round when it comes to that point in the show. But I think a lot of people, myself included, when we heard that Clements was back as quarterback's coach, it was like, all right, that's it. He's coming back. There's one of two things in that situation, right? Either A, it's a really good tea leaf, as you're talking about, Alex, that he's coming back, or B, it reeks of desperation that they don't know and they are concerned that he's not going to come back. And they've gotten to the point that they're willing to go out and like get his old quarterbacks coach out of retirement to be like, see, we really want you back. And while I still lead myself to believe that, hey, it's actually the former, that this is something that, they think he's coming back and maybe even got his input on the decision. If it's not that, it does start reeking of desperation pretty quick.
Or there's a different option. There's option C, which is Tom Clements is a great quarterbacks coach, and they got wind that he wants to come back to the league, and they just offered him a really good deal, and he already has ties to Green Bay. I mean, it's not the same as when he was there, but I think that there's a third option there.
It could be. You're not wrong. That absolutely
Optimism.
could be. And you know what? If you want to bring in a quarterback's coach for a QB making a transition into a starting quarterback, not a bad choice to bring in Tom Clements as somebody who has experience with Rodgers in that sort of situation. So
that was my thought also, is that even if Rodgers does come back, like no matter what, this hire is also good for Jordan Love, because he's developed not just Rodgers, but he had a whole part in Kyler Murray's ascension. I think he won Offensive Player of the Year when Tom Clements was his quarterback's coach in Arizona. So if anyone can do it, it's him. Maybe there's your desperation, seeing what they can get out of Jordan.
Hey, take all four options you guys just listed, throw it in a blender, and serve up a smart smoothie. You guys, I think there's a little truth in all of that, right? Like, I think Tom Clements is a very good quarterbacks coach, but this is also a chess move for Aaron. Like, it's all true. I agree. Go ahead, Andy. Sorry.
We are not serving up smart smoothies. We're not serving smart smoothies. You did mention something earlier though, Alex, franchise tag, that possibility that Green Bay could put a franchise tag on Davante Adams. I'll just start off. I would be surprised if that happens again, unless maybe we get the Rodgers news that he's coming back and then those dominoes start to fall very quickly. But I'll let you guys answer as well. Perri, do you think we could see a Davante franchise tag on Tuesday?
No way. They just don't do it. And they don't do it to players like Davante. I think it'd be a huge slap in the face to him. And I just, no. You
don't think they do it at all? Like it's like not even just tomorrow, but at all?
Oh, no, I don't know. I really don't. I just think that like, it's just not a thing the Packers do. And they certainly would not do it to a player of Davante's caliber. Like, again, I just view it as a slap in the face to him.
Alex?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Perri, right? I aren't the Packers the only team in the last decade to not use the franchise tag? If I'm not mistaken. Who's the last player they used it on? Ryan Pickett?
That's a question. That's going to have to be your Google fingers again.
Okay, got it. I believe Ryan Pickett is the last player they used the franchise tag on. I hope I'm not wrong there. But yeah, I think it's super unlikely. And it is a total slap in the face because it's under market value. It's less than what he deserves. And I think if Davante is going to stay here, he wants commitment, I think. Right. And obviously the dollar sign that's attached with that. So we'll see. But I think it's incredibly unlikely that it's used because like Perri said, and like the random stat I might be wrong about.
You're right.
I don't think they used it. Good for me. I don't think they just don't use it. So Andy, I assume you're with us.
I'm not. I think there's a real legit chance that if Rodgers is back, I think there's a real chance that the franchise tag could get used. And I think the DeAndre Hopkins contract ruined things for the top paid wide receiver. And I just think, Brian Gutekunst literally said last year, they think that, that Davante should be the highest paid wide receiver in football, but there's a huge difference in what the highest paid wide receiver in football is because of Hopkins' stupid contract that Arizona gave him. So I think that they can make a strong argument of saying, we're willing to make you the highest paid receiver in football. It's just not what you think it is. And the only way we're going to get to that middle ground of that is by potentially putting a franchise tag on you. Because they probably know that some other team may pay him upwards of the Hopkins contract, if not more. So these are weird times in Green Bay. I don't think we can ever I don't think we can use Packers history in recent history of how they've done contracts at all in this season if Rodgers is back and it's another all-in season. I think you're going to see them use desperate measures in desperate times to make this team as stacked as possible. And the franchise tag would not surprise me in that situation. I think they'd love to avoid it. I think they would.
The one thing I always go back to, and if either of you haven't listened to it, I suggest is Tom Grassi interviewed Mark Murphy this summer during training camp while we were up there. And it's a great interview. It's like 35-ish minutes. And there's a soundbite in there. And it's Murphy saying that they give third contracts only to future Hall of Famers. And I go back to that all the time because I just know that the front office wants to do everything they can to give this contract to Davante Adams. Because I think we all can agree he's a future Hall of Fame wide receiver. I do think, though, it is just a matter of the cap and the numbers. And if they can, because if they could, I think they would. And if they could agree on a number, like Andy said, I think it would have been done already. But that's just why I'm like, they're just not going to do that. The franchise tag, to Davante.
It's a great pull, by the way. That great pull by the Grossi interview. It's a great call. It's interesting. And Davante obviously has the makings of a Hall of Fame wide receiver. He's not there quite yet, but a couple more years with Aaron Rodgers, he's there, baby. So I think you've got a great point.
Way to prop up our rival YouTube podcaster and Tom Grassi.
Sorry.
What's the ESPN show where they can mute people if their point's not good?
Around the horn.
Yeah, around the horn. If I was around the horn right now, they're like, you should listen to Tom. Mute. I'm just kidding. Tom Grassi is the best. I love Tom. He's absolutely amazing. And if you're not listening to Tom already, you absolutely should be as well. We're gonna do absolute rapid fire here, and we're just gonna tally up totals at the end and see what we come up with. So this is pure rapid fire. Will these players be back in Green Bay or will they not be back in Green Bay this upcoming season? And how could we start anywhere else than Aaron Rodgers? Perri, we will always start with you. We're going to go right across. We'll go Perri and then me and then Alex each time. At least that's how it's set up in my meeting here. It doesn't matter. Perri, Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
I say yes as well.
I say yes, a 3.
All right, we got 3 yeses for Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love, Perri.
Yes.
I'll say yes as well.
Unanimous.
All right, unanimous there as well. Davante Adams.
Yes.
I would love to say no, but I don't think they get Rodgers without Adams. I just feel like those two are connected at the hip at this point. So I'm going to say yes.
That's where I'm stuck to, Andy. I'm just going to play contrarian here. I'm going to say no, but I tend to agree with the Rodgers-Adams hookup.
And by the way, I don't love to say yes. I want Davante Adams back at all costs. I love him to death, but you get my point. I would be much more leaning to say no if it weren't for Rodgers. Right. Mercedes Lewis.
If they get him on a vet 1-year minimum deal, yeah. But if not, I think he just retires.
I think it's yes too. I don't know how many we can say yes to. It seems unrealistic, but I have to say yes as well.
I'm going to say no.
Okay. 2 yeses, 1 no on Lewis. Randall Cobb.
No.
I'm going to say yes. I think same thing. Minimum deal with Aaron Rodgers. I'm saying yes to everyone so far.
I say yes to Cabo just because of your earlier point with connected at the hip. And I know him and Big Dog are tight. I just don't know if he's worth, over a vet min at this point. So I'd say yes on Cabo.
Okay. 2 yes, 1 no. Tunyon.
He's a restricted free agent, isn't
Unrestricted.
he? Oh, he's fully unrestricted? Then I'm going no.
I'm going to say no as well. I think a prove it deal on a 1 year would make some sense. He's got the ACL, just very difficult. I'm going to say no.
Yeah, the prove it deal is interesting. I'll go yes, but I think it's lower than expected.
Unless he's again tied to Rodgers, because he is a little tied to Rodgers.
It's true.
You never quite know. I mean, those are the really interesting things. And again, they can't keep everyone either. Allen Lazard on a restricted deal.
Yeah.
I'll say no.
I'm going yes.
All right. Billy Turner.
No.
I'm going to say no as well.
Unanimous.
3 no's. All right. Zadarius Smith.
Yeah, it's definitely a no.
Hard
Hell no. Hell no. No chance. Absolutely no chance.
Preston Smith.
Yeah, I think Preston restructures and comes back in a team-friendly way.
Agreed. Alex?
Perfectly put by Perri.
Devondre Campbell.
I really hope so. I really hope so. He was just up there. It gives me optimism. If I hadn't seen yesterday, I would probably be leaning no, but I'm leaning yes now.
I'm going to say no. I think that he's going to want that long-term deal.
I think Perry's point makes it really interesting, but I'm with Andy on this one.
All right. Dean Lowry.
Ooh.
I think his contract makes it really tough, and I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say yes, but I don't feel good about it.
I'm not feeling good about it either. I say no.
All right.
This is a fun game.
Rasul Douglas.
Ooh. Yes, only because he said he was willing to take less in his end of season press conference.
I'm going to say no because I think Green Bay realizes that their corners are going to be paid in Jair and Stokes, and that they're going to have to use money elsewhere. So I'm going to say no.
You know, his agent got in his ear after what Perry just referenced and said, "What the hell are you doing?" I say no.
All right. Adrian Amos.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I say yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Mason Crosby.
Unfortunately, no.
Ooh.
I think he retires would be my guess.
Yeah.
I do too. But I think it'd be interesting if he came back for one more year. So I'm just going to say yes.
All right. And then last but not least, Bojo.
The only good part of special teams last season. Yeah.
I'm going to say yes as well.
Other than when his punts were getting blocked, which I know isn't his fault, but nonetheless, I say yes.
To be fair, if I were the punter in that situation, I would have juked the guy and then just nuked like a 75-yard punt. That's what I would have done in that situation.
If you were the punter, you would have juked the guy and ran for 99
touchdown. Yeah, probably would have taken it in. Yeah, that's a great point, Alex. Thank you. Good point.
You're an athlete.
There's no better place to end, actually. Stephen Wordle. Perry, is Stephen Wordle going to be back in Green Bay?
No.
No, there's no chance. All right, so here is our final results. Aaron Rodgers is going to be back in Green Bay. Jordan Love will. Devontae Adams will. Mercedes Lewis will. Randall Cobb will. Robert Tonyan will not. Lazard will. Turner will not. Z will not. Preston, yes. Campbell, no. Lowry, no. Douglas, no. Amos, yes. Crosby, no. Bojo, yes. And Stephen Wordle is a no. We got to get the heck out of here. You can follow Perry on Twitter at Perry_Goldstein, Alex at Alex_Strouf. I can't say that either time in the intro or the outro, but find them on Twitter and follow them anyway. You can follow me at Andy Herman NFL. You can follow the podcast at Pack a Day Podcast. That does it for us today. You guys are absolute legends. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.
Legends.